Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all having a great day and that you are all doing well. Before we begin, I'd like to give an exclusive, very special thank you to my latest Patreon supporter, Sarson Funds. Thank you very much for your generosity. You have an ocean of my eternal appreciation. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. We have very interesting news today. Like very interesting news. Cryptocurrency exchange services provider known as Kraken has officially acquired a regulated futures trading startup known as Crypto Facilities in an undisclosed deal valued at least 100 million US dollars announced on Monday. The 9-figure acquisition, the largest seen in the industry so far this year, will enable Kraken customers to trade spot as well as open positions, offering exposure to the future price movements of cryptocurrencies, all through a unified trading interface. As such, Kraken CEO Jesse Powell framed the merger as one that would massively accelerate his company's roadmap, enabling the San Francisco-based startup to sidestep years of efforts to obtain the licenses and approvals necessary to offer a competing service in Europe. For those who don't really understand what that means, you've seen before in the US with the SEC and all the other things, when you're trying to get the proper legal documents or whatever you need in order to be able to do anything. So even though this isn't in the US, I'm using that kind of as an example because we typically focus on the SEC. It takes a very long time to be able to require all this paperwork. So what Kraken has done is they've acquired another company that already had the paperwork, and this is why I believe they think that that the deal should have cost them $100 million, because they kind of circumvent or go around years of waiting for approvals by simply just acquiring a company that has it, and therefore by default, they then also now have these framework to be able to list all these other things. Kind of get it? Yeah. Founded in 2014, Crypto Facilities is registered in the United Kingdom Financial Conduct Authority, or the FCA, and the deal was approved by the regulator the parties involved said. Here's where it gets interesting. In addition to offering cash-settled futures trading for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, XRP, Litecoin, and Ether trading pairs, Crypto Facilities notably provides data to the CME CF Bitcoin reference rate, an index created in collaboration with the CME Group and that powers the entity's U.S. futures offering, a relationship that will continue following the acquisition. They said, the deal brings our total developer team to over 100 and will accelerate Crypto Facilities by enabling us to add more assets. We plan to launch more contracts in the medium term, and Kraken also plans to launch more assets. So this is already something that we have not even seen the U.S. market makers, stock exchanges do. As of now, we've typically just had Bitcoin futures. That's always been it. The fact that Kraken has now officially released that they're going to have Bitcoin Cash, XRP, Litecoin, and Ether futures as well is incredibly insane, because I've been trying to speculate for quite a bit of time, trying to figure out exactly, when the other stock exchanges were going to announce which coins they were also going to be having for their futures, because they more or less have all announced around the world that they are planning on some type of a futures offering. But it's always been like, yeah, we're going to start with Bitcoin and then slowly move out to the other ones. So the fact that they have already added at least 5 of the top most well-known coins and that they plan on launching more contracts in the medium term is incredibly insane. There was also one of the other, I can't remember the other things that were actually, it's a very long article. Powell and Schaeffler also stressed the benefits of future trading would bring to the customers, as they will now be able to trade futures on nights and weekends, extending beyond the 9 to 5 trading hours on current US-based offerings. That may sound a bit trivial or maybe not as important to all of you, but if you have ever been into stocks, bonds, and mutual funds before, and you have woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you realize that you wanted to sell your position or you just didn't like where you were, you can't do that. That's not how it works. The market, you have to wait until the market's open, and it creates a bit of a problem because you have to wait until this certain time frame. If you ever get home at 5:15, the market's closed and you kind of have to wait. And they're also closed on weekends. So this is also a problem. And this is why I said before in another video, this is where I think cryptocurrency is incredibly interesting and is actually going to change the financial world. Simply because if you are relatively new to crypto, you only live in a world where you know these quick transactions, and you transfer from a cryptocurrency exchange or from you to a friend or however you may be exchanging money, and you realize, you may get upset that the transaction takes about a minute and a half, maybe even 5 minutes for you to get like a confirmation that you have received it. In the old financial world, you had to wait days to even have the opportunity to think about selling it, and then it had to be approved by the actual exchange that you were actually selling and trading on, and then it was just a bunch of mess. So crypto has completely changed the entire world, and the fact that Kraken have realized at least part of this, and that they're going to allow this 24/7 trading. Remember, who was the other? It was the German stock exchange who just released their own crypto trading app, I think it is, like with the I think it was Bitcoin, Ether, and XRP, and they even noted in the actual press release that we read a couple of days ago, it was like, yeah, it's still 9 to 5, but eventually we're going to become 24 hours a day. And it's like, from the get-go, wouldn't you just think of, hey, let's launching 24 hours a day because this is a 24-hour market? So Kraken is, and it seems nonsensical that they would be ahead or further than the rest because they're offering something 24 hours a day. But this is why traditional finance is horrible, because it takes so long. We're used to these markets that were developed around like 1850, and we're still using the exact same time frame, the exact same framework. All that's really changed is that we're using now computer systems from like maybe the 80s, maybe the 90s. Like, we have more accelerated things when it comes to people like using trading bots and stuff like that, but the same general framework, the same general idea is still there. But let me move on from that little topic. And the other point that was to be made, it says it's somewhere around here, if I can find it. Right. It says, in addition to exchanges like Kraken, in which users can buy and sell such assets for fiat currencies, Powell noted that the development of platforms like Binance have grown more quickly by sidestepping into interactions with regulators. He said they're not in the US, they're not dealing with regulation, they're not hooked up with banks. More appropriate competitors, Powell suggested, would use Luxembourg-based Bitstamp and Coinbase, the latter of which, while based in the US, have expanded services in Europe. Kraken will not allow US exchange users to engage in futures trading. You should get it by now. The US has been very, very difficult when it comes to letting anyone into their space, and I can only imagine what it's like actually being in the US and being told that you can't really do anything. And this is why we see Coinbase and many other, not even many other, there aren't many other, just other companies in general expanding into Europe, expanding into Asia. I don't think Coinbase is going to be one, because I don't want to say like a lapdog, but they're kind of, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to maintain their position where they are. And I don't think they have the gall to be able to move away. The point is, I wouldn't be surprised if we see other cryptocurrency exchanges that are based in the US kind of pick up their stuff and leave, kind of the same exact way that Kraken has done. Kraken and Binance announced before that they are going to have limited access to, or rather for Americans on their platforms because of all the regulation. It doesn't take can you imagine a situation if Kraken had still been based heavily in the US, or had like a setup in the US where they would have been able to pay $100 million to be able to acquire another cryptocurrency platform that would allow them to immediately start trading futures of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, XRP, Ether, and what was the other one? Litecoin. That would take years. That would take at least 5-6 years. We had news before about the entire thing in New York City with the Bit license, where we've had people applying for Bit license for the last, 4 years, and I think they've allowed 3 companies over, 1,300 days. It's all very nonsensical. I am very proud of the rest of the world for having already come forward with talking about crypto regulations, or making things very clear, at least for the very beginning, for companies who are trying to get into the cryptocurrency space, that they know exactly what to do. And this is why we see so many people moving to Luxembourg, moving to Gibraltar, moving to Liechtenstein? Stein. I don't remember. Liechtenstein something. The point is, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this topic. This is incredible. This is it. I just woke up, so don't mind the outtakes. This is an incredible acquisition by Kraken. I had started to lose faith in them simply because they're becoming like Vitalik on Twitter. Sometimes it's kind of like somebody needs to take the phone away from them. But this is incredible. I hope they continue to do more. And yeah, so also this kind of ties in with their like rebranding. I didn't really get it before, but apparently they're trying to completely redo themselves as a brand, as a company. And this is apparently their new look. Let's move on. So if you wanted something ridiculous, here it goes. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is planning to track the most widely used crypto ledgers. According to an announcement, the SEC is attempting to figure out how to read blockchain data more easily. In addition to tracking data on coins with the highest transaction volumes, the SEC will also review the universe of available information and transaction details. The initiative is designed to improve efforts by the SEC to monitor risk, improve compliance, and inform commission policy with respect to digital assets, and will probe details of a wallet address, including identifying the owner. Right. The main objectives of this are to convert the data into a reviewable format, provide data extracts on a recurring basis for the most widely used blockchain ledgers based on transaction volume, provide capability to derive insights from the available data, including attribution data, to whom a particular address belongs. For those who didn't understand what all of that meant, it pretty much means the SEC now thinks that it is within their right to look after the most used cryptocurrency blockchains and or distributed ledgers, however you kind of want to call it, and to figure out exactly where the money is going and who owns these wallets, because they once again believe that this is their right to do so. Yeah. While the SEC does not list which ledgers it will track, a majority of the top cryptocurrencies use blockchain, which is a distributed ledger that achieves consensus through mining. XRP, however, is not mined and uses a consensus ledger with a network of validators to transfer value. According to data compiled by BitInfoCharts, here are the crypto ledgers with the highest transaction volumes in the last 24 hours, and therefore we can assume that these are going to be the ledgers that the SEC is going to be tracking from henceforth to figure out where you have your money and how much money you have that you are not telling them about. They are XRP, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, Dogecoin, Litecoin, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, Satoshi's Vision, and Monero. So the announcement calls for submission from blockchain forensics experts who have developed sophisticated blockchain tracking tools. The headline for submission is the 14th of February, so happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. I can't say that I'm surprised because I'm not in the slightest. But this is going to get very interesting very quick. We have a couple of coins on that list who have already announced openly that they are going to make sure that they have private transactions either by the end of this year or sometime next year. I find it very interesting how intrusive certain people, entities, think this is the actual filing of what they're looking for. Think that they can be. We've even had people inside of the SEC who have announced that they are overstepping where they are, what they should be doing, and how exactly they should be making sure that things are compliant. But I mean, this is how the world is. This is where the world is going. However, I mean, rather, there's no real silver lining to all of that. It's more of a what's the nicest way of saying this? Thank goodness we have people behind the scenes who are developing actively on these projects, and it is because of things like Mimblewimble and ZK Snarks that the future of crypto looks a lot brighter, if you understand what I'm getting at or saying. Gonna breeze over this one. It's one of the problems that I have with the cryptocurrency space is that if you've been here before, I try to remain as centered as possible. I try to give everything a try. I'm human, a relative fair chance, if you will. So when I look for news and stuff like that, sometimes certain news will be posted on like a certain amount of websites, and it's kind of weird. Anyway, the point is, this one is posted on a website called Ethereum World News, and Ethereum is the first word, so you can kind of gauge where they go with their news and who they kind of support more. The article is pretty much about something that I find kind of interesting. Jack Dorsey, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the head of, I want to say it's not Circle, it's definitely Square. The point is, Jack Dorsey apparently behind the scenes has been very active when it comes to his beliefs about being a Bitcoin believer and where he thinks the entire industry is going. And a lot of people, I guess maybe just not myself anymore, have kind of realized that there's a huge amount of movement behind the scenes where people are trying to not gauge interest, but interest is growing for the Lightning Network and rather rapidly. There was something I was reading even a couple days ago, and it's really insane how this keeps happening over and over. There's a lot of buzz around Lightning Network because people have realized that this, at least at the moment, is probably the way, or one of the only ways, one of the few solutions that we have right now that's going to allow Bitcoin to be able to send transactions back and forth very quickly. And this is why we've seen such a huge amount of expansion through the Lightning Network. And you'll kind of notice through the article, as I'm like even just scrolling through it, you'll see the word centralization actually highlighted, because once again, Ethereum World News, they're gunning for Ethereum. But they're talking about how Lightning Network would be more centralized and Lightning would be more so-and-so. The point is, it appears that there could be an indication that even Square may be looking for the possibility of trying to push the Lightning Network, let people know about the Lightning Network, or even create a huge amount of hubs for the centralized hubs. Don't mind the wording of the article. You see the exact same thing on Bitcoin websites. They talk about XRP and Ethereum, and sometimes even Litecoin as being like centralized parties, and you'll see the same thing on like XRP platforms talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum being centralized. So everyone hates each other, everyone loves each other at the exact same time, kind of. The point is, and I said this about a month ago, I'm still waiting for one major entity to kind of announce that they're really into Lightning, because at the moment it's just kind of been Blockstream, the people who created it, and it's been like a couple of other people who've come forward to try and make the news. And there was that one guy last year who I think bought up like half of the Lightning nodes, and so and so and so and so forth. I think this is going to happen a lot quicker than a lot of people think. If we do eventually have a move up in the market, we will need with a capital N, the Lightning Network, to be able to make sure that Bitcoin doesn't become too backed up again. But it's going to rely heavily on multiple Lightning Network apps coming out. I was, or slightly am, hopeful that we have some major company announce that they have created a Lightning app, because we have the one who has like two companies who've created Lightning apps. But I was hoping, like I said before, that we had the news a couple days ago where the German stock exchange created their own app where you can like buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrencies. Like if we have something like that from the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, and they announce that you also, or rather that when you are sending Bitcoin that it's through Lightning, that would help things move forward. Anyway, speculation over, I guess, but you'd better believe that behind the scenes there are definitely a lot of major companies who are trying to find ways to grow the Lightning Network and also to integrate it into their systems. Because it's almost go time, and we cannot have another situation where Bitcoin has 300,000 transactions backed up. That is not going to be a good thing for any part of the market, because we know when Bitcoin goes down, the rest of the market tends to follow it. I guess probably the most obvious news of the day is an Indian government committee is concerned by the impact that cryptocurrency could have on the rupee if it is allowed to be used for payments, according to a report published by Quartz. This happened yesterday. The article refers to the government panel led by Indian Economic Affairs Secretary and former Executive Director at the World Bank, Subhash Chandra Garg, who was recently set up in September 2017. An anonymous source, because they're always anonymous, active in the crypto industry, and who reportedly met with the committee, is quoted by Quartz as saying, and I do quote, "If Bitcoin and other digital currencies are going to be allowed to be used for payments, then whether it will end up destabilizing the fiat currency is a major concern for the committee, end quote. According to the article, the source further explained that the overall impact on the financial ecosystem that is likely to have it is unclear, and it has been a challenge to convince them on this particular point. The article suggests that such concerns have been spurred by reports released by the Bank of International Settlements, or the BIS, in March. As Cointelegraph reported at the time, the banking giant suggested authorities continue their broad monitoring of digital currencies outside centralized control. The BIS also warned that even central bank-issued digital currencies could be a threat to financial stability, and this is what we saw before, even a couple days ago. This is why I said this is all getting very interesting, because we're not even seeing cracks in the traditional financial system. It's more like there are gigantic fissures that are forming, because we have countries who are, rather, central banks that are telling other banks, don't do this. And then we have a situation where other countries keep putting their foot on the neck of other countries, telling them what not to do with their money, and no, you can't have your gold, and no, you can't transact in this way. So they're creating their own digital currencies that are kind of forbidden or something like that from the Bank of International Settlements. So you see where this is all going. We have like an internal external struggle between all of these people who are trying desperately to keep economic control over their own country, but everyone keeps telling them to do something the opposite of what they actually want to do. Rahul Raj, former of Indian cryptocurrency exchange CoinEx, told courts that at this point it may be a bit premature to worry about crypto's impact on monetary stability, since the scale of payments made by cryptos is quite limited. According to him, there's no reason to worry about that until blockchain reaches the scale that, say, MasterCard or Visa have. I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree with this guy right here, simply because this isn't the first time that we've seen a country openly state that they are worried that cryptocurrencies are going to kind of tsunami their money, their fiat currencies away. The fact that the crypto market, keep this in mind, the fact that the cryptocurrency market in 2017 almost touched $1 trillion without the money that flew into the market in 2018 over the counter and stuff like that, scares a lot of countries. You cannot have something at this point that was, Bitcoin was 8 years old. XRP, Ethereum, Litecoin, all these other coins were maybe around 4, 5, less years old. This relatively new industry that at that point was actually worth more than a couple of countries around the world. If we had hit $1 trillion market, it would have been the craziest thing. The fact that we even scratched the surface with a very long nail was very significant. The fact that crypto has fallen apart, the prices are completely down. Certain coins have gone down, what is it, around 84% to 99% for certain altcoins during the entirety of 2018. And we still have reports like this where countries are afraid that crypto is going to destabilize their going to destabilize their fiat currencies that are not really worth a lot and that have no real reason to exist because they continue to print them. Is incredibly significant, because pay attention. How many articles have we had over the last couple of months where we have a lot of analysts, not even just crypto analysts, but other analysts on TV who keep saying that they think that we are either going to eventually at some point pass by $1 trillion market cap. Bitcoin alone will be worth several trillion. And then at some point, we are going to have a $100,000 Bitcoin to a $250,000 Bitcoin, which is also significant because we heard before from that Swiss bank. They said that if Bitcoin alone passes by $250,000, it will be able to, destabilize and usurp the US dollar. You see where this is all going? So I don't think we don't even have to get to that. When cryptocurrencies reach the size of MasterCard and Visa and usage and stuff like that, we will have at least a $10 trillion market cap throughout the entire market. That's just completely where the cryptocurrency space is going. Should countries be worried? I can't say. I'm not a professional financial advisor. I can only give my own ideas from what I've read, from what I've seen. I don't have any certificate, so they probably wouldn't care for my word in the first place. But the point is, The signs are very clear where this is all going. Now this makes me understand. I've wiped away the fog from the window, and I can understand why India has yet to give any type of information as to exactly what's happening with cryptocurrencies in their country. It's because they realize that the moment the US gives proper regulations, the moment that India gives proper regulations, and the moment that Russia's leading up to it, they're going to give regulation at some point. I think they're just figuring out, also trying to figure out exactly how to have control over the situation. You can kind of say that. Crypto in the next 3 years, I don't have a crystal ball. It's going to destroy a lot of the fiat currencies that we have right now. We may not hear about this on television. We may not hear about this even for about 2 or 3 years after the collapse of some of these currencies have happened. But it's going to happen. And what's going to end up happening is that once the popularity of cryptocurrencies reaches a certain point, everyone around the world will know the name Bitcoin. Everyone will know what a Litecoin is. Everyone will know that their bank transfers are happening through XRP. And this is kind of where you get to the point where no one will start using the fiat currencies anymore, because people will, I don't know. I could actually go on about this topic for at least another 7.5 hours. It's just interesting to see this power struggle that looks like a tug of war with like a piece of floss. Like it looks like nothing is happening, but we've had so many instances where we've had news from committees who have met up. And once again, this is just the news that we're getting, that we are allowed to hear, that this happens to tumble onto our humble cryptocurrency news websites that we end up having a window. Because if this is happening it's happened in America. We know that it's happened. We saw the actual live thing in 2018. This is happening in India. This is happening in Russia. Just imagine the other countries that aren't as big or as powerful or aren't as economically sound, or that also may be going through mega hyperinflation, normal heavy inflation. These discussions are definitely being had, and I'm certain there's one country on this planet, there's one that is either having them now. I don't mean like this exact moment, I mean like in this time frame, or has been having discussions as to exactly if they should integrate Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency that we have right now into their payment systems or as their legal currency, because they've realized that within the next couple of years, their fiat currency will not be around anymore. I guess I'm going to move on from this point, because like I said, I could go on forever about it. At some point, you have to give regulations. It appears that India is not going to ban it. So I just hope that they have realized that they should have been, while the prices are down, that they should have also been in the accumulation phase, because there are going to be a lot of fiat currencies that are just probably not going to make it over the next 3 to 5 years. Let's move on from this. To kind of finish things up, people have been screaming at me in the comment section, why have I not been talking about the Bittorrent token? Why have I not been talking about everything that's been going on with it? I will talk about it. I will breeze over it, if you will. For those who don't know, a couple of weeks ago, sometime very recently, there was something that happened on Binance where they were selling Bittorrent tokens, BTT, and I think you were also airdropped some if you had the Tron token as well. This is why before we saw a shoot up in the Tron price, because typically when you are having an airdrop, you want to accumulate more of the coin, and then you get the coin and then people sell off. And this is why we saw before that there was a bit of a sell off on Tron. People have been asking me to talk about the run up in price from the Bittorrent token and why I haven't been talking about it, why I have not been fair. I have not spoken about this because I do not think that Bittorrent needed a token. It's great that they have a token. We have had news from the head of Bittorrent, like one of the actual people who developed the platform. He was there for years. He and a bunch of other people came forward and said they have looked into it. They said, we are developers. Justin Sun is not a developer. They have looked into the actual coding and stuff like that, and they says at some point Tron is going to integrate BitTorrent, or BitTorrent will in some capacity run on top of Tron, and they said that Tron cannot handle this. Tron can only do so many transactions per second, and they said that Tron was going to melt. Hands in the air, not my words. This is what they said, and I believe them a bit more as they created BitTorrent, and they know how the system actually ends up working. So when I saw that there was a run-up in price, and I will say this the most logical way, who is using this token? Is this token actively used by you or your friends or your family? Do you think it's a bit weird that this token has had a run-up of 600% over the last couple of days with no one really using it? This is why I have not spoken about it. Typically, whenever we have things like this, I've mentioned other times before, especially even when EOS first came out, for instance, I told people don't buy it the moment that it comes out, because things like this happen because the hype gets too strong. People buy into it, and then the price ends up crashing down when we have a brand new other shiny token coin that ends up coming out. And then people on the channel get burned, and then they kind of get upset and wonder why they lost money. There's always a hype cycle. No one is using this token that much that just came out that will warrant a 600% price increase. I said the exact same thing for Beam and Grin. I love the Grin token. However, there's not a chance of me buying into it at any point because it is hyped right now, and everyone throws their money rapidly at brand new coins. And then eventually when we have another new coin that ends up launching a couple weeks later, the other less now shiny coins ends up falling in price. And that's the moment when you should think about accumulating. EOS came out. It jumped up. I think it was like 40 cents. It jumped up to around $6. For a couple days, people were buying up as much EOS as possible, and then it dropped back down to 40 cents. Everyone was like, it's a crap coin. I can't stand this coin. And that was the moment that you should have been accumulating. So this is why I have not really spoken about it. Any coin that goes up by 600% is a major red flag. Remember this for the future. Unless you got in around here, that should be the only time that you are talking about the coin, because this at some point, unless behind the scenes, Tron has been actively making sure that every single user on their platform has been using their token, and you have to use it and you have to do this, there is no real reason for a 600% run up. Think about how much that Bitcoin, that the words Bitcoin, XRP, and Ether have been in the news the last 3 weeks. I've said those words at least 7,000 times altogether. That warrants a 300% price move up for these coins because we've had so much good news. Just gonna put it that way. This is why I haven't spoken about it. I don't like, and I understand at least a tiny bit when things move up and when they're gonna come back down. And this is why I don't mention them on the channel, because I like for the hype to go away so that I can mention the potential for these coins. I still don't think that BitTorrent needed a coin. Just my personal feeling on it. However, it happened. It's going to continue happening. And let's move on, question mark. To kind of finish things off, market's not doing too bad. A little sea of green and red. I mean, at least we're not down like 7% on anything. Where is Tron? Yeah, Tron also had like these little run-ups as the hype for BitTorrent. Like every single time there's like a spike up in BitTorrent, Tron also goes up, and then when no one's hyping it up, the price starts to go back down. So be wary of where you're putting your money right now. Like a lot of the projects floating around are hyper hype. So please don't throw your money into something and then start losing it. You see what's happening. People keep telling me to talk about these coins, and then when no one's talking about them because they have a very low volume compared to even Neo. How often is Neo in the news? It has $100 million. Yeah. And then this has, anyway, the point is, that is going to do it for this video. A lot of very interesting news. No idea where the market's going to go. Not even a slight idea. We are apparently still nearing the end of that wedge, and this is why Bitcoin is doing these tiny movements. So, cross your fingers and or your toes if that helps you, because we are going to either slam upwards and have a very nice price movement up, probably above 5,000, or we're going to reach those 2,000 level numbers that people have been talking about. Either way, it's going to be kind of interesting. I'm here along for the ride. So yeah, I hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are. Wherever in this crazy world you might be, I hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching and or listening. As always, a very, very special thank you to my Patreon supporters. They are Yasha Harari, Gordon Nikic, Travis Haynes, Nick Mangialavori, Professor Wally from Gunbot University, Arthur Yaku, L. Doug, Brady Niels, Rai, Gil, Boa Snake, and Vlad the Impaler. Thank you all very much for your generosity. I do appreciate it. And yeah, I'll talk to you all soon. See you.